welcome again and happy to connect with you. So today we are having a session that many people have asked for, and we are happy to have one of our members at the Africana Journal Club who volunteered to facilitate this session. So thank you very much, Grace. Before that, I'd like to just read a bit of her bio so that she can come over. As you all know, when we're on these sessions, you can, as the presentation is going on, you can use chat to ask a question. You can share your reflections. Feel free to have an engaging learning and ask as many questions as possible to help you in your research. Grace is a research fellow. Please mute. Let's observe Zoom etiquette. If you're not speaking, stay muted so that everyone else can hear. So Grace is a research fellow with the Artificial Intelligence for Development program at the Africa Center of Technology Studies, ACTS. She has served as a professional there, and she's an awardee from the IDRC CEDAR project. She's a lecturer at University of Nairobi and Strathmore as well. She teaches on computer science courses, curriculum development, conducting research, mentoring students. She's a tutorial fellow at the Technical University of Kenya and Maseno University School of Computing Informatics, where she's chaired the computer science for postgraduate committee. Claire is a PhD candidate now at University of Nairobi Department of Computing and Informatics. And what is she researching on? She's researching on the use of artificial intelligence for education as a scaffold for supporting socially shared regulated learning strategies of students in e-learning context and reducing dropout rates among learners. Okay, so maybe Grace will tell us a bit more. So she holds a BS in computer science and technology from Maseno and an MSc information technology from University of Nairobi. She has been an ambassador of Africademic Scholarship Ambassador, and she's a member of Association of African Universities. And she's very interested in AI and how it shapes education and mentorship. Short and long, we are in good hands. This is a learning space. Feel free to ask any question, don't feel shy, and we are here to support each other. You can also put your names on the chat if you want to know someone else or people to know who you are. So over to you, Grace, and please take us through the session.
Thank you, Aurelia. And on behalf of IDA Africa, I want to welcome all of you into today's webinar. Just as it's been mentioned, my name is Grace Leah Akinyi Okundi, and I'll not repeat the introduction that have been made, but I'm looking forward to having an interactive session today. So as a research fellow at ACT and also a researcher at the University of Nairobi and also a founder of a technical, it's called Activate College, Equator Institute of Technology and Research Studies in Nairobi. So we want to share a bit, it's more of a learning session on research design, just to understand basically what research design is about. And as researchers, because I want to believe that today, majority of us in the audience today, we are researchers. When we want to look into the strategies that we need to factor in sampling our data and even our records, what is it that we need to think through or think about? So that's what we are going to look at today. So I want you to just relax and let's have it as interactive as we can. So the outline of my presentation will be as follows. The first section, I'll take you through basically what research design is about, the elements, characteristics, why do we need a research design, what are some concepts, and then we differentiate, look at the various types of research designs. Under sampling, we look at its definition, just methods, and then we'll look at some real life case studies, even as we tackle conclusively on what sampling entails. So a research design, that is to start with. So as a researcher, usually, why should one go out to conduct a research? It could be based on a problem that you've identified in the society, or it's an assignment that you're working on that's for maybe master's or PhD candidates or students, or it could be a problem that you feel needs to be addressed, or there's some funding or a grant that you want to utilize so that you also get some money or also increase your professional status. So as you go through this journey of research, as you go through the research journey, and the problem has been identified, the first thing you usually do is come up with clear objectives to help you come up with those goals that you want to address. And the objectives are usually mapped with such questions, which are those questions that you ask yourself as you come up with the hypothesis on how best your problem or research goals are going to be attained, okay? So as we look into that, with our understanding of what problem we want to come up with our understanding of what research question we want to try and address, and also after going through some literature review where you've done some survey of literature and you've identified some research gap, now the next step is usually to come up with a plan or a blueprint. In this case, we're calling it a research design. So this is a blueprint. We call it the glue that holds your research together. And that's what you want to talk about today. What is this glue that holds all the processes of your research into one item or into one document that can be used to resolve or achieve the solution to the problem that you're trying to address. So we'll define it as a master plan. So research design is a master plan that specifies all the procedures and methods that we're going to use as a researcher to collect, analyze the needed information in your research study. Okay? And it's also a blueprint that helps you do a number of things. So in the entire research study, this blueprint will help you describe the approach that you're going to use in addressing your research problem, the study setting, what is the context of this research? Is it maybe is it a school environment? Is it an e-learning setup? Is it a hospital? Is it a field study? So what is the context through which or by which you're going to conduct your study? What is the sampling size? You're going to look at a sample and a population and be able to identify even some of the errors and also how to tell if a sample is really feasible for a productive study. What techniques are you going to use in your sampling, right? What tools and methodologies are you going to use even in your data collection and analysis? And all these, when they're put together, they form part and parcel of a research design. But remember, the main thing is to answer your research question or to test if your hypothesis indeed had a null or if they've been met, okay? And there are a number of researchers that have also tried to help us understand what research design is. So just to summarize this definition, one, we've said that a research design is a master plan. We can also call it a blueprint that helps a researcher to conduct the research study through all the research phases or all the research processes. And through this research design, which we're also calling an action plan, that helps you move from here to there. You're moving from point A to point B. And point A in this case is the first instance at which you have your research problem and your research questions, okay? The initial set of questions that you need to answer. And point B is the conclusions. Now, after you've addressed your research issues, you have your data analyzed and interpreted. Now, that is the end of the context that we're trying to talk about here. So that's what we're going to look at in the next few minutes. Then we'll have some activity, if time will allow us, and also some Q&A session where you want to feel free and ask, okay? Now, we've also, next slide is just talks about the research process, which all of us are conversant with. And you're saying, just as we've mentioned, that a research design is a document, and this document outlines all the different activities in the entire research process. So it gives an outline of all the activities in the entire research process, from coming up with the research question or hypothesis to the final state of analyzing data. So as you can see from these 8 steps of our research process, We start with identifying the problem, the light, right? And then we evaluate literature, then we create objectives or hypotheses. Then the research design comes as the fourth phase of our research process. And as we had taken note of the main goal of research design, through the design or that blueprint or that roadmap that we want to use to address the entire process of our research, we'll base it on the sample, which in this case we'll pick from a population. Then we'll have data collected through some instruments. Data will be analyzed, and then we'll have our report written at the end of the journey. So this is the entire process. So let's understand today. I know most of us are already I've conversant with this, that a research design is part of a research process. Okay. And the next thing that we'll be talking about today is also what's called sampling. Sampling is also part of a research process in the population, which is the next phase after research design, where you describe the population that you're going to use in your study or in your research. We're going to look at sampling and how best it fits on that tire. So okay, so our next slide here, just briefly, just gives an understanding. Still, we're trying to understand what and why we need to be looking into a research design and how best it helps us even in life. So as you looked at from the previous slide, we conduct literature review, then we have our hypothesis, then a research gap is usually generated before you go into your research design blueprint. So we come up with a research design based on a gap, okay, that you've identified from literature. And how do you pick your research gap? You can have your research gap picked from a number of cases. It could be an interdisciplinary gap. You've looked into different fields or different contexts or domains, and then you've identified that indeed there's an issue that is pending. So that could be an interdisciplinary gap. You could have a temporal gap. That it's a gap that is experienced over some time, over some period. You realize that there's a pattern that after maybe 5 years, maybe there's a process in an election process or something that happens that it's never done right, and therefore you want to try and bridge this gap by solving a research-based solution based on this. We can also have research gaps based on some contextual inference where we have insufficient understanding of the environmental setting, and therefore you have or you feel the need of going an extra mile to do what? To understand a context or an environment and then write about it, and also acknowledge those who've tried, other authors who've tried to write about the same thing. We have a number of research gaps, but underlining point here is as you come up with those empirical gaps, theoretical gaps, methodological gaps, temporal, contextual, and interdisciplinary gaps. Let's pick those gaps and let us use them to help us formulate a document that we call a research design that will help us come up with a clear layout or outline of how we can solve or address the challenges that we are facing in our research. Okay, so the next slide is just the 10 questions. We have 10 questions that you as a researcher or me as a researcher, usually we need to ask ourselves as we make decisions on how best to draw or come up with our research designs. What focus areas should we be looking into? Okay, so we're calling it the 10 questions for research design decision making. So you want to decide which model do I pick, which framework should I use, which theory that based on the literature you revised, what is the best tool that or technique that you need to pick to help in your research and design journey. So there are 10 questions here that usually it's advisable that you can ask yourself, but feel free, you can always adjust or add more questions or just try and retweak the ones that you have to confirm if your research design is really making sense or not. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the research study about? And remember, we've already mentioned that the research design is a blueprint that displays or gives a clear layout of all the activities, the tools and techniques that you want to engage with in the entire research process or in your research journey. So ask yourself, what is the research study about? So you should be able to clearly give a brief background of what you're trying to solve in the society, what you're trying to resolve, which SDG goal or area does your problem fit in? And let people understand what you're trying to come up with. That should be built on the previous slide that we've just talked about. So what is the study about? 2, why is the study being conducted? As you ask yourself this question, remember we are thinking of how to formulate our research design, right? So we need to clearly understand what your research is about. Like if you want to understand the dropout rates of learners in university, or you want to understand why there's high pregnancy rate of students, especially at Form 4 level, of ladies in their Form 4 level, or you want to understand why we have more men as opposed to ladies, more boys as opposed to ladies when it comes to the Gen Z demos, right? So understand the study, and then why is it being done? Maybe you want to understand those patterns, you want to come up with some inferences or solutions or suggestions based on an observation or based on an experiment, as you also will be looking at that shortly. 3, you need to ask yourself, where will the study be carried out? So 1, we've said, what is the study about? Okay. 2, why are you conducting this study? You want to understand some behavior, you want to understand some origin, you want to understand some patterns, or you just want to find out why things are not happening, and therefore you want to initiate a study or something. Where will the study be carried out? So that is a context. Is it going to be in a hospital? Is it in a lab? Is it in the garden if it's an agricultural project? Is it in the classroom? Is it in the field? So what is the setup or environment by which the study will be carried out? What type of data is required? Data collection, as we've seen I was showing you the different processes of research. Data collection is one of the processes in research. So what type of data do you need to collect? Okay, is it structured? Is it unstructured? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it mixed? So you need to understand the type of data that you're going to need, even as you analyze your data, even as you go through the design of your research blueprint. 5, where can the required data be found? So how are you going to collect the data? What tools are you going to use even in the data collection? Is it a questionnaire? Is it an interview? Is it, all these tools, that techniques that we can use to collect our data, you need to have them written down somewhere as a draft before you come up with your research design and decide on what techniques or which tools you're going to use in the data in the research. The 6th question is, what periods of time will the study include? So we have different studies that are done, others are cross-sectional, others are conducted longitudinal in studies that are done over some long period of time. So you need to also understand what period of time. Is this going to be in a week, in a semester, in a year, after 5 years? So understand the period of time by which you're going to conduct your study. What is going to be the sample design? You're going to look at this shortly based on the population that you'll be engaging with. And then what techniques of data collection will be used? So that is based on the type of data that you'll have identified in your question 4 above. And that is what is going to influence the type of data that you're going to collect. And how will the data be analyzed? So this is going to look at some statistical analysis tools for qualitative and even quantitative, and be able to also justify why you're picking those tools. And last but not least, in coming up with your report, what style will the report be prepared? So all these are questions that you need to ask yourself as a researcher, even as you think through coming up with a design of your research. So the next slide just briefly tells us some elements. So there are about 10 elements that every research design should include. 1, we said it's a document that has, or a blueprint that holds the entire research process. So the first element is the purpose statement. What is the purpose? What drives the research that you want to conduct? Okay. We've spoken about the techniques that you're going to use in the data collection, the methodology that you're going to engage with. Okay, that's based on we also have the timeline, we have the settings or the context by which you're going to conduct your data. objections that you feel or project that you might have. And then we have the methods of data analysis. So this is just a summary of the elements that we might actually be engaged in the journey of our research design, even as we come up with the entire blueprint that we, as researchers, we can always use. With that understanding, it's also important as we talk about research design. You've already answered some of these questions. That one, based on the project in your research that you have, you now want to come up with a clear master plan, like the one architecture or surveyor architectures use, right? A master plan or a blueprint that will help you understand all the nitty-gritties of the processes that is going to go through, to undergo. So why should we need it? One, it gives a smooth flow of various research operations, and therefore it makes your research as efficient as possible. As researchers, we are advised that immediately you have the research problem in mind. Immediately with that research problem, you can easily now start coming up with objectives or start formulating a research question. And out of that research question, it's usually better to start having a research design as you begin your study or your research. Okay? With the problem, ask yourself about the tools, timelines, the methodology you want to engage with, and all that. Have a master plan. You'll have a layout of feasible or not. If you need to change a few things left and right, you need to tweak a few areas left and right. So with a good research design, then even the efficiencies and reliability of your entire research is going to be enhanced. The third reason why you need a research design is biases and errors are eliminated. Because you're going to avoid a lot of errors and biases, as we'll look at shortly. Even wastage of time is going to be minimal. It's also helping in testing hypothesis because you're already projecting the end from the beginning of your study. And a research design also provides a direction to the research. So it's like you already have a clear plan of what you want to do, and that is going to save you costs and other resources that might have hindered you your completion of your research work in time. Just to mention, we have different sections of research design. We have either the sampling phase, or we have the observational design, where we just understand or come up with different observations that needs to be made. We have statistical design, and then we have operational design, which looks at the different statistical issues that you need to talk about. I'll not delve much into that because there's a slide that will elaborate more on that. Sorry. To conclude on this section, a research design, as we've said, they must have 4 things. 1, a clear statement of the research problem. Remember, it's from your problem statement that you come up with a research question or objectives. Then from there, you build your literature review, come up with your research gap, as you've looked at the 8 different categories of research gaps. From that research gap, now have a clear roadmap or a clear blueprint, which now you're calling a research design, in your methodology and tools and in the data collection and all that. That will guide you into analyzing your data, interpreting that data, and having some conclusions and recommendations in the entire research work. So it should have a clear statement of research problem, that is 1. And then clear procedures and techniques that should be used to gather data should be well captured and laid out. 3 is the population that you're studying. It's based on the SDGs that you're looking at, based on the domain or the context that you want to address your problem on. The population also needs to be clearly outlined and justified why you feel that population is important and needs to be factored in or given priority as opposed to another. So that could be based on maybe an experience you've had, an observation you've had, etc. And the last component that should be part of a research design is the methods that you're using in processing your data and in analyzing your data. And that's what you're going to look at shortly. Okay, so we've looked at the contents, what a research design must have, and in that format, in that layout. And then as we draw that, there are four features that design should always have. One is that a good research design should have the feature of validity. Validity is whereby you have the right measurement tools that will gauge those results according to the original research question or research objective that you have. So there are many ways that you can use to measure the results of the research. And one we have talked about, is it valid? How do you test if your research is really valid? So research design will help us clearly know or understand the validity of our research, if indeed you need to continue with it, continue with the data analysis, or you drop it and switch to other techniques. The other feature of research design is generalizability. So a good research design should draw an outcome that can be applied to a large set of people, and we don't just limit it to some small sample size or a research group. So any outcome that you have from your research design, when I go, if I'm based in Nairobi, say in Kenya, I should be able to use the same outcome, or the same outcome of my research design in a different country, say in Uganda, or in Malawi, somewhere in Lilongwe, or in a different context, right? Without the sample size is only limited to one area. There's another characteristic of neutrality. A proper research design should ensure that assumptions are free of biases and are neutral. And also, at the start of every research, you as a researcher, you need to make some assumptions that can be tested during the research. We look at this practically. And then the last feature is reliability, is where we need to have similar results in every part of the world, and you should not be limited to just one location. And that also relates to validity to some extent. These are some of the features of our research designs, and we need to ensure that we do and we factor in all the requirements and all the content, as we have mentioned in our previous slide. Then we're going to limit errors, biases, and even time and other that might hinder from
Yes, there's a bit of buffering.
Or objectives of our researchers as initially. Ask an engaging question. Okay, researchers, those who are attending today's session, and how to check on my network. But so the next section is just the categories of research design. So usually research design is clustered into two major categories, either exploratory or conclusive. Exploratory or conclusive. So under conclusive, we have descriptive, and then we have the causal. I know we've looked at, we've heard of the Ishikawa diagram, the cause effect diagrams that we usually engage with in our during research when coming up with conceptual diagrams. So this is what helps us to build a research design. So under exploratory, so we said we have exploratory, then we have descriptive. That so under descriptive, we break it down into longitudinal and cross-sectional. I know I'd mentioned a little bit of this in my previous slides. Under cross-sectional, now we have either single cross-sectional or multiple cross-sectional. So let's look at this shortly. And then I'll want each of us to just think of a research problem. I'll not want you to state the objectives of your problem, but I want you to think after we've covered the categories of research design. How best, or how would you categorize the research problem that you have, even as you try to come up with research design as a blueprint to help you
Grace, I think you can turn off your video.
Research process. So the first is exploratory, which we also call formulative, is meant for formulation of a problem. Okay. Okay. Maybe in the meantime, is it back?
Yes, it's a bit better now. I think without the video, it might consume less. So let's see how it goes. But we need what you were saying last.
Oh, what I was saying previously, I was just talking about the various categories of research design. Confirm if it's clear now.
Yeah, quite good.
It's better, thank you. Yeah. So you're looking at the categories, and we looked at exploratory, and then we are going through exploratory, which is also called formulative research design studies. And you're saying under formulative or exploratory design studies, we try to discover insights through this approach or this category of research design. And there are three methods. So what are some of the methods that fit under the formulative or exploratory or insight research under research design studies? So when you're coming up with a literature survey, you want to understand or to come up with some literature survey of various literature or a number of studies that have been done over some period of time. We'll categorize that as an exploratory research design approach or research design study. Or another example is experience survey. Another category is when you have analysis of some insight stimulating studies. So that will also categorize as a formulative research design study. So we can explore that a bit. I know we've looked at literature surveys where we have, for example, some bibliographic surveys. We have maybe you want to understand some patterns of maybe farming over some period of time or behavior or performance of students over some time. So those could form under literature surveys, and those are exploratory or formulative. The objective of exploratory surveys is to obtain insight into a relationship between variables and also new ideas that relate to the research problem. So you want to come up with a way of better understanding how variables relate, okay, and how maybe new ideas or new innovations that you have identified from the patterns that exist relate to the research problem that you're trying to address, okay? So that is one example. And when we talk about formulative or exploratory studies, it comprises of some intensive study of selected instances, and that actually falls under the literature surveys that we looked at. The next category is descriptive and diagnostic. So under descriptive, from its name, we are trying to look at studies that deal with exploring or looking at some individuals or groups of individuals and describing their features or characteristics in some detail to be able to determine the frequency of some occurrence. And as you do that, you try to associate that frequency of that behavior or pattern with something else. So descriptive studies begin with specifying objectives and then data collection techniques and some methods of data collection that are used in under descriptive research designs interviews. We also have observations. Interviews can have a number of formats. It could be maybe physical, it could be telephone, and all those other types of interviews that we have. So those are descriptive or diagnostic categories of data, not of data, but of research design. So we can also have, apart from descriptive, we have experimental or hypothesis testing research design studies. That's the third category. And with that, this is the most common category, especially for studies that deal with the STEM, the science, technology, and engineering based, or most studies usually based on experimental, or you want to test some hypothesis. So they're meant as, or they're known as experimental studies. And here we usually try to, or a researcher tries to test the hypothesis to identify some causal relationships between different variables. And the experiment can be conducted over some time. We've looked at how that design can be done. And they require procedures that will not only reduce biases, but also increase reliability. So when you compare interviews, observations, and experiments, usually experiments are deemed to be more accurate as compared to even some of the interviews that we conduct and even the surveys that a researcher may conduct, because of the accuracy or the reliability, the extent of reliability that is usually realized, even as you draw inferences about the causality and the relationships that are identified. In summary, as you look at the three categories, we can decide to understand them in terms of one, the objectives. What is the goal? When you look at, say, exploratory category of research design, its main goal is to discover insights. Okay. When you look at descriptive, the main goal is to describe the characteristics or the functions. While when you look at experiment or the causality, the experiments are usually meant to determine the cause and effect relationships that happen within some phenomenon that is under study. The second category, the second feature that we can use to understand or distinguish between or compare these research designs is characteristics. Exploratory research design is flexible and is versatile. Descriptive is a little bit rigid because it's marked by the formulation of hypotheses or pre-planned designs, a structural design that you had. While experiment, as we had said, it's usually more accurate. It is it's more of a manipulation of some variable, usually the independent variable, to control other mediating or moderating variables. The third feature that you can use to help you understand these categories is the methods. The methods that are used to collect data. So under exploratory, mostly we engage with the surveys, expert surveys, pilot surveys, qualitative research, secondary data based on some books or some documentation. While descriptive research design is based on some surveys, observations, and even some secondary data as well. But for causality, we base it on experiments, either true, quasi, whichever experiments you want to engage with. So as you think through your problem, as a researcher, as you try to sit down and come up with the right roadmap to engage with, you can always pick which research design you feel you want to engage with from the method that you want to use to collect your data, the resources that you have, and even the objective or the goal of your entire study in this case. Okay. Before we go into the types of research design, do we need to have an interactive session? I know time is also running. Aurelia, would it be okay to ask if there are questions from the audience, or we just continue? I don't know.
No, we can ask. We can ask.
Okay. So let me know if anyone has a question. I see around 100 participants. So any question?
Godwin?
Yes, Godwin Abakari, please
yeah,
ask.
Yep. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Please, I want to know what's the exact difference between materials and methods and the research design as you presented. I want to know, I have a clear understanding of it.
Oh, Bakari, thank you for your question. I think I didn't get it quite clear. You're asking for the difference between materials and?
The difference between materials and methods, and then the research design.
Wow.
He's saying the difference between materials, methods, and the research design.
Okay, between materials, methods, and research designs. Okay, thank you. Okay, materials, methods. Okay, thank you for that, and research design. Okay, so when you talk of materials, let me just try to answer. I know Dr. Mushemi is also here and my professors, but when you talk about materials that are used or tools that are used in your data collection, they're not the same things. Okay, tools or materials or resources could be the items that you want to use even to help you come up with the structure or the outline or the contents of your research design. That is in this case. But in the entire research process, you might need materials, materials as requirements to help you maybe come up with say in an experiment, you might need some software, you might need some tools to help you even design your solutions or use some models that can help you even in your entire research work. When we talk about methods, methods in this case, say methods of data collection, data can be collected either, when we talk about methods of data collection or methods, we can have either secondary or primary methods that you can use to collect your data. And that is based on still on the problem that you are trying to work with here, and even the resources or the materials in this case that you have. Like if you want to talk about, maybe you want to do a survey, an online survey in this case. So you want to ask yourself, how knowledgeable are you in coming up with a survey instrument, like say a Google form, like say a Google Survey Monkey? Do you have the right skills or the training that can help you draw or construct or come up with an instrument that you can use to collect your data? If it's an experiment, you want to ask yourself, do you have, say you want to do an online you want to do an experiment, say in about farming. You want to maybe use an AI, come up with a way of detecting maybe soil pollution, or you want to check if maybe there are different patterns of maybe plants in a garden. You may use some equipment like maybe say cameras or maybe testers to be able to tell or detect or check on different. So methods in this case can be based on the data that you want to gather, and what skills you have, and what team of people or experts that you're going to work with even in the entire journey. But the research design here, we said, incorporates all these, okay? Because it is a plan. Research design is not just based on one item. It is based on the problem that you have. It is based on the methods that you want to use in solving or addressing that problem. It is based on the time that you want to spend, a number of resources. So these three items, Bakari, they're all different, okay? They're related, but they don't mean the same thing. Thank you. I don't know if that has answered you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, any other question maybe from the audience?
We can just take one more, then we continue.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any on chat. None on chat, unless from the audience.
Okay, maybe one other question if there is. Yeah, so I believe you've gotten that clearly, that the materials are those resources that you use in the investigation, right? And then we have the methods, and then we have the research design. So just feel free also to type your questions on the public chat. I'm seeing we have a number. Maybe we'll look at them later, but I can see the public chat is also getting full. Now, the next section that you want to look at is the types of research design. Now, as we look, maybe let me see if there's a pressing question. Oh, no. I think let's look at that.
There's one here. How can we correlate research objectives with the research design? I think you mentioned, but maybe you can restate it again. The correlation between research objective and the research design.
Okay, that is from Dr. Murad Ali, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I know I'd mentioned this earlier, but remember formulate our research objectives, and in this case, we're talking about SMART research objectives. Those are measurable and accurate in this case. So as we look at our research objectives, they are built from the problem that you are trying to address here. So it's the problem that builds into your research objectives. Now you're talking about correlation between your research objectives and the study design. For example, if you have, you say you have 4 or 3 research objectives. The first objective can be maybe research-based. We can talk of to understand or to identify the challenges that face students in a programming course, okay? So you want to, or the challenges, or why students are dropping out at a higher rate in STEM courses as opposed to social science. I'm just looking at an example. So you might have an objective like to identify the challenges that face learners. And then now in the research design, in this case, remember after objectives, then you go through some literature, identify a gap, and through that research gap, now let's work on this roadmap or this blueprint. Now, you map objective 1 to your research design, but how do you do this? You look at that research objective, right? Look at that research objective, then diagnose it into different phases. What is its purpose, right? You should be able to maybe to help learners maybe graduate in time or stay. So you try to break or link the objective to the research design or the approach that you're going to use. You remember we said that research design is the glue. It's a glue that holds your research together. So from that objective that you have formulated, how are you going to resolve it? What methodologies are you going to use? If you're supposed to do primary or collect data using that through that to help you address that objective, what are you going to use? Is it, are you going to just comb through journals to help you identify the challenges? Are you going to do some interviews to help you identify those challenges? So outline those in the research design now in this case, from the objective you have, identify maybe the data collection approaches you're going to use, tools that you're going to use, different resources that you're going to engage with, how long are you going to even, and even which environment or context are you going to have or to go through as you address that objective. So try and map the objective to the structure or the methodology that, or the design approach that you need to use to address that objective. Ali, I don't know if that has answered you. So what you're saying, Ali, here, I don't know if you feel answered. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ali. Yeah, you try to guide what you aim to achieve, okay? Yeah, to help you gather the data, and even it dictates the structure, how the structure of your study is going to be. I can, okay. So let's continue, and then we'll come back to the questions, because I know time, we still have about an hour to go. The next phase is just the types of research design. So we have 3 broad categories, either qualitative, quantitative, or a mixed method research design. So these are broad categories. I know most of us could be conversant with them, but I'll just take us through them even as we progress. So qualitative, from its name, we've looked at exploratory research designs previously. So qualitative is mostly or primarily exploratory based. It helps you understand opinions, motivations behind different patterns, and also the reasons. Okay. A qualitative research design is also based on an observation. It provides insights into a problem and helps to develop hypotheses for different or potential quantitative research. So from its name, it's more of a way of reasoning, understanding underlying reasons and behavior and why things happen the way they are. We can also say a qualitative research design is an investigation that is systematic, okay, of some phenomena, and it's done to help or through gathering quantifiable data and performing some techniques. A qualitative research, so when we talk about qualitative research, examples can be questions or scientific inquiries that can be answered by just interviewing or observing or just analyzing some case studies. So it mostly is theory-based, for lack of a better word. We can say qualitative research designs are based on some views, observations, or just some generalizations in their theory or text based. Why do we use qualitative, or examples of cases where you can use qualitative research design approach is in some structured or formal context. Like I want to just ask a general question, and it's not always possible or desirable to use fully structured or formal methods, but you can come in or try and do some qualitative research design in trying to get information from respondents or participants without having some formal structures. Like an example can be, have you recently abused some drugs? Maybe I want to ask a student that. Or I want to ask a student, I know in Kenya yesterday, we marked the first anniversary of the Gen Z protests, whatever, the one that 25th of June. So if I may want to ask a student or a learner today that, did you participate in the recent Gen Z demonstrations? Like, were you on the streets yesterday? So this is quite a sensitive question, but I may want to, try and be a little bit insensitive, or the person who wants to answer, who is being asked, may be unable to answer some questions because of how it's being asked. So qualitative research design sometimes help or hinder participants or respondents from giving what exactly you want to attain. People may not provide accurate answers so that you don't get what you want to do. So how should you manage that? How should you address that? We're talking about some emotional drives. We're talking about some subconscious level questions that may interfere with the ego of respondents or just make people not answer. So as we think about these qualitative questions, I think about research design-based qualitative approaches. So it's also important to note that sometimes it's not possible to use this approach in some contexts that need formal answers to obtain information. But you can always try and be a little bit smarter or change context or just have some friendlier language that can help your participants also, or can help you as a researcher to obtain information from your participants. So there are a number of types of qualitative, actually there are 5. One, we have narrative research. Narrative, just from its name, it's an approach that helps a researcher to just have a design of inquiry from humanities, from people, but just providing stories and narrations on different occurrences. We have phenomenology. Phenomenology comes from philosophy and psychology, so it integrates psychology and philosophy, and it helps you as a researcher to describe some experiences that you've had on some phenomenon. That is the design has some philosophical underpinnings that involves conducting interviews on different participants based on some philosophy. We have grounded theory. It's commonly being used today. It's also a design of inquiry from some social science background where a researcher would want to come up with some general abstract theory of some action that is grounded in some observation or views of participants, okay? So here with grounded theory, you have multiple or engage multiple stages of data collection, and then that is refined and interrelated to get some information. Ethnography is also another type of qualitative, but it's mostly based on or involves coming up with observations or interviews. Ethnographies inquire mostly from social sciences, just like grounded theory, and also anthropology. Case studies are another common type of qualitative research designs. And with case studies, they help you to inquire from a number of fields, but especially they help with the evaluation, where you develop some in-depth analysis of a case, often a program or a process to be able to understand better how there are different behaviors. So that is that. Apart from that, we also have ways by which qualitative research is categorized. So one, we have the direct, and then we have indirect. So we've mentioned our ways by which we can collect data through this qualitative approach, but with direct qualitative procedures, we have focus group discussions. We have in-depth interviews that can be conducted with different participants, okay, or participants in a study. While in the indirect qualitative, we're talking about projective techniques, association techniques. We have construction, we have expressive, we have completion techniques that can be applied or are usually applied even in our direct approaches or indirect engagements. So focus group discussions, I know we are aware that comprise of maximum of 12 members, a minimum of, is it 6 or 8? Yeah, but with the indirect approaches here, we have a number of techniques that have been applied or can be applied here. Like in word associations, where you want to fill in a specific or link or associate different parts of a phrase or a word. We have completion techniques where just like the grammars that the comprehensions we used to have in exams, you have some gaps that need to be filled in some story or in some essay or passage. Then you also have expressive techniques. So I know I'll be able to share all these slides and you can just create time and go through them. The other type is quantitative. So we looked at qualitative. Now we also have quantitative and we have mixed methodology way of research design. With quantitative, we're talking about a research methodology that seeks to quantify the data and apply some form of statistical analysis. So we said for qualitative, we're talking about observations mostly, okay? But now for quantitative, there's some statistics, there's some analysis that both of them involve analysis, but here we have some statistical analysis and generation of data in some quantitative form that can be subjected to some rigorous quantitative analysis in a rigid function. Quantitative design, research design, helps to describe variables. It also helps to examine relationships among these variables. It could be independent, dependent, mediating, moderating, all these variables. And also for qualitative research designs, they help us identify or determine that cause and effect interactions between variables. And usually, as I've mentioned, the Ishikawa diagrams, the Ishikawa is Japanese for fish, okay? Japanese for fish. So it's a fish diagram, the cause and effect diagram. So quantitative studies will help determine those causes and effects that cause different variables to behave or in different ways. How would you define a quantitative research design? Here, a researcher decides what he or she wants to study. The researcher will ask specific or narrow questions that will tend to collect numerical data from participants. And through this data, the researcher will be able to analyze the data using some statistical tools and come up with some inquiry in an unbiased, objective manner. As we had mentioned, that qualitative is a bit informal. Quantitative on this side is quite formal and systematic, where numbers or numerical data are used to obtain information from or about the world. There are a number of the different types of quantitative research design. So experiments. Remember, we talked about experimental research design. So experimental design is a quantitative. It determines or it seeks to determine if some specific treatment influences an outcome, okay? Survey research designs are also quantitative. They provide some numeric description of trends, attitudes, or opinions of a population by studying a sample of that population. This can be maybe in some longitudinal study or cross-sectional study using different interviews or questionnaires or survey instruments in this case. We also have, so quantitative research can be classified into two. We have inferential. With inferential, we're trying to look at survey research where some population is studied to identify the characteristics of that population. We also have experiment, so experimental approach, as you've said, where we have some variables and you manipulate the variables through some treatment to be able to check the effect on the variable. We also have simulation, So in the context, so simulation is also used in building models to understand future conditions. And it involves construction of some artificial environment within which relevant information and data can be generated. So how do we compare this to qualitative and quantitative research designs? You can look at a number of characteristics, like based on the sample size, based on the data collection, data analysis technique, based on the outcome that you want to look at, and even the objectives. What is the goal of a qualitative research? We already said that qualitative research is meant to gain a qualitative understanding of an underlying reason and motivation, while quantitative helps to quantify data and generalize results from a sample to the population. Qualitative, as we had said, is unstructured, while quantitative is structured, etc., etc. Okay. You also want to compare survey, different instruments that you want to use to collect data. We have experiments versus survey. You may be a researcher who is seated here, a master's student, a PhD student, a candidate, just a researcher or a research fellow. You have a problem, you're trying to work through which research design should you work with, which data collection instrument or technique should you go around to conduct your research. So how best should you pick one and leave the other? Surveys are based on questionnaires. And a survey is just the method of securing information about a phenomenon under some study. Okay. And in a survey, you as an investigator or a researcher, you examine a phenomenon that exists in the universe independent of its action, right? So you don't consider the action or the final outcome or the behavior. You try to look at that phenomenon and examine how it's behaving without really looking at its action. Experiment, we've said, refers to investigation in which there's a variable that you need to test and also check on its causes and effects. Okay, causes and effects. So if there's a study that you need to pick some variables and try and compare to what causes that variable to behave in that way and what would be the effects in the environment or in whichever context, then you could pick an experiment. So this is just a table that will help us. I picked surveys and experiments because they're most commonly used in our researches today. For a survey, it's conducted in a case of descriptive research, while experiments are for cause-effect studies or experimental researches. Surveys have larger samples. Experiments can have small samples, and they'll still be accurate. But the sample size, as you determine that, you also need to factor in a number of things, as we'll look at shortly. In surveys, the researcher does not manipulate the variable or arrange for events to happen. In experiments, you are the researcher, you're the one to manipulate the variable. You may, but it's not mandatory, but it's based on the treatment that you want to give here. Surveys, it's an example of a field research, while experiments are part of a lab research. Those are some of the features of surveys and experiment. The third category, apart from qualitative and quantitative, is mixed. According to Creswell and Plano, mixed methods research is procedure for collecting, analyzing, and mixing both quantitative and qualitative in one study. So when you mix these, both qualitative and quantitative, we call it a mixed methodology. When should we use this? When you have both data that is that can both be quantitative and qualitative, and then when one research cannot be enough to explain or answer the research questions. Remember what we said about research design, it is based on your research questions. So based on the research questions, that's when you pick the right design type of research design to use, the right tools that we use for data collection, and all, not vice versa. Also use a mixed methodology when we want to generalize some findings to some large population, when you want to explain some findings, qualitative findings based on quantitative findings based on qualitative design, or when you want to provide alternative perspective in your study. So those are some of the cases where we can use our mixed methodologies. So to compare these three types of mixed, we have a number types of. We may want to distinguish or try to understand these three types of research designs. Quantitative, we've said, is mostly experimental based. Qualitative is phenomenology based on grounded theory. Ethnographies or case studies. For mixed methodologies, use it for sequential exploratory design, concurrent triangulation, or nested studies. Okay, so I think we can stop there for the first part of this presentation. The first part of this presentation. I am sorry for really taking too much into that, but I hope we've learned something. Week or day to just explain on that. But let me see if there's one or two questions on that before we talk for the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes about the sampling techniques. Okay, let me see. I think there's a question on the chat. There's a question on the chat. Let me see. That's Ali. No, Ali had Wilson. Okay, you've shared your email address. Let me see. Is there a question?
Revo Katas is asking, can small scale be generalized? I'm not sure what small scale means, but yeah, maybe Revo Katas, you can make your question a bit clear. Can small scale be generalized? Then there is Millicent asking what is triangulation. So just to, because I know we have mixed group of people. There are those advanced in their research, there are those who are starting off. So maybe even explaining what triangulation is.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Aurelia. The first question is from Wilson, that can small scale be generalized? Okay, so yes, small scale studies, small scale analysis, small scale research can be generalized, but it's challenging. It's a little bit challenging to generalize small scale, because when we have fewer samples, then generalization can be difficult. So small scale samples can only be generalized when or within some specific context, and only when it's limited to a specific context. So yes, but the generalization of small scale can be done. I don't know if Wilson, that answers you, but even as Wilson confirms that, somebody asked on triangulation. Is it triangulation? Yes, was it on triangulation? Yeah, so usually in research, triangulation provides some more complete picture, and it's encouraged in most contexts. It's just a simple way or technique that has or incorporates theories. It incorporates different questions, different findings, different methods, and it tries to contrast or allow for comparison of data from a number of sources, apart from just having data from one source. Okay, so it helps you to explore and come up with a better understanding of your study. So usually, if it gives a richer context. So that's what we are talking about when you mention about triangulation. Okay, I believe that should address the question. So sampling. Let me just brush through sampling quickly. So a sample from a population, it's just a unit that is selected from a population. A sample is part of a section of a population. It's smaller. It's like a representation. It's like the sense. I know sometimes our countries usually do census, and we have a representation of different people in maybe different towns to represent the entire nation. So it's a unit that is selected from an entire population. As you can see from the diagram, that's not mine, but I've acknowledged the sources. So that is what we call a sample. So when you decide to do sampling, why do we do sampling? Sampling saves on time, finances, and even a population sometimes is heterogeneous and you might not really meet all the needs of the population. And walking through all the participants in a population might be usually very expensive and inconvenient to also draw a sample from that. So it's as you can see from a population, you just pick a sample. Like if you have different colors, purple, black, red, yellow, and orange. So you can decide to just pick a sample of that and try and conduct your study and have a finding or a conclusion from that sample that is a representation of the entire population in this case. Something else to note is like there's a diagram here that just shows us that a population is that bigger section, the parameter, and then the sample is a simple statistic out of that parameter or out of that population that we're talking about here. So let me just see, I don't know if I can get my cursor from here. Yeah, so this is laser pointer. Yeah, so this is a universe. So from the universe we have a population. Then from population we have a sample. Then from that sample we can now get some sample data that we can use to conduct our design or our study. And this is actually what you're saying here. From a population, just having one or a section of that population, we call that a sample. A good sample needs to have a number of features. It should be accessible, it should be representative of the entire population, and the cost should also not be too expensive. And the process of doing this sampling, coming up with a sample is called sampling. And this is, we call sampling a process of selecting observations, that is a sample, to provide an adequate description and inference of the entire population. You take a sample from a population to be able to analyze that sample and get data out of that sample. So that is what we call sampling. An inference is achieved from a sample based on some sampling frame. Next slide just shows us sampling a design process. What processes or steps should you undertake in coming up with a sampling or with a sample? So one, think or define a population. Define your population. From that population, then you need to come up with a sampling frame. You need to come up with a sampling frame. So if your population is doctors in Kenya, then you want to come up with a sampling frame from that population of doctors, that you have in Kenya. So you want to come up with a set of units or some individuals from which that population or that sample is going to be drawn. So that frame itself, okay, we call that as a sampling frame. It gives some practical way of selecting a sample from that bigger population of medics or doctors that you're saying here. And when that sample frame is well done, when you come up with an accurate sample frame, it enables you to have some crucial way of representing, or a better way of representing that entire population, and it minimizes also biases. So you looked at the sample frame, then from that sample frame, now you determine the sampling procedure. So there are two ways here. The sampling procedures are twofold. One, you can either go the probability sampling way or the non-probability sampling strategy. So we need to look at these strategies that we use or might engage with in coming up or conducting our sample based on populations of study. So if say we're talking about doctors in Kenya, you may want to pick a representation of maybe say doctors from Kenyatta National Hospital, or doctors from Mama Lucy, or doctors from Aga Khan Hospital, or whichever hospital. That is if maybe you pick a few from public hospital and private, and then do your study out of based on that. So determine or define your population based on the problem. Pick or determine your sampling frame. Determine the sampling procedure. So we want to digest these two if you want to go the probability sampling route or the non-probability, what do you mean by this, and how best will you go or approach this? Probability sampling involves or entails the stratified sampling. We have cluster, we have simple random, we have systematic multi-stage sampling, and etc. Well, the non-probability, we have convenient sampling, judgmental sampling, snowballing, we have quarter sampling. In both of these, or in either of these procedures that you might pick for your sampling, you should be able to determine the appropriate sample size and then execute the best sampling design to draw or to run with, okay? So this is a simple sampling design process that you can adopt as a researcher. So we've talked about probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Let's look at probability sampling. I'll just brush through. Probability is also called random sampling or formal sampling. So in probability sampling, each unit in the population has equal chances of being selected as a sampling unit. So what do we mean by this? If we have a population like this, the yellow part, I believe we can see the yellow part, right? So in the sample frame, all these purple boxes in the sample population have equal chances of being picked. So whether it's this purple or this or this or the ones in the sample frame, those elements have equal chances of being selected for a study to be used in to be used as samples for a study. And probability sampling samples are usually more accurate, and they allow us to estimate the accuracy of the sample. Something else you can say about the simple random sampling is it's the purest form of probability sampling, and it assures each element has equal chances of being selected, just as we have said. There are different types of simple random sampling. Some you can, we have with replacement or without replacement. So with replacement means that the unit has been selected. So once the unit has been selected, it has a chance for again being selected. While without replacement is you pick it and it cannot be selected again. It is discarded or it's put in a different container on the other side. So we have different methods for simple random sampling. We have the lottery, we have random table, we have the typet method, but due to time, I'll just go through, maybe we'll come back here. Then we have a stratified sampling, stratified random. So from the name stratified random sampling is where you have the population grouped into strata according to some criteria. And it could be, say, geographical location or the level of education, the age, the income level. So you use some strata to categorize or to divide your sample. Okay, so that's what we call stratified random. And then the elements within each strata are usually homogeneous, but they are heterogeneous across the strata. Okay, so what is, yes, so that is what we're talking about. Dividing, so a strata is just having the population and then you split it into smaller subgroups. That's what we are calling strata in this case. You divide them into smaller groups, which can easily be manipulated and analyzed. Okay, there are a number of advantages for stratified random sampling. It assures representation of all groups are in the sample population as needed, but it also reduces variability from some systematic sampling. Its disadvantages, it's costly. It's very expensive to come up with a stratified sample, and it requires accurate information from proportions of the cluster, from proportions. Okay. So just something else to note here. Out of a population, you might have one cluster. So from one cluster, you can only generate one sample. You may have a second cluster. So from cluster 2, you can only, if you're using a random sample within each cluster, you can have sample 2 from a cluster 2. So if you have different clusters, cluster 3, you can only generate sample 3 from that cluster. So samples and clusters can be grouped or can be categorized based on how we've come up with them. Some terminology that I also wanted us to understand from the stratified random sampling is it requires a sampling frame, that is one, and also the periodic ordering is needed because it needs to be done after some time. Advantages are the cost is moderate, and also it's simple to draw samples and easy to verify. I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing I only have like less than 10 minutes to go. So maybe I could just base this on a case, a real life example, or let me find out if somebody has a question on sampling, which we can use to just take us through this topic of sampling, how best, or any challenge that you might have faced even in your journey as trying to pick a sampling frame, or you try to work on a number of either probability or non-probability sampling techniques. Let me see if somebody has a question. Just type on the chat there and I should be able to address. So that is to do with probability. And then for non-probability, here we are looking at a case where each case that is being selected from the total population is unknown. So you don't know the unit of sample that you're choosing. You're just coming up with some judgment or convenience, and there are no statistical techniques that can be used to measure random sampling errors in the non-probability samples. So generalizability is never statistically appropriate for non-probability sampling. So it's a bit challenging here, but as we had said, we have a number at some types which are going to look at here. So something else to note is that non-probability sampling involves non-random methods. So we don't randomize here. And selection depends upon a situation that is happening. It's a little bit convenient, but less expensive as compared to probability. The types here are like snowball sampling. We have quarter sampling for larger populations. We have purposive sampling where you go for this type of sampling based on a specific goal or purpose that you want to engage with. We have self-selection, we have convenience sampling. Convenience and purposive, I know people sometimes use them interchangeably, but they don't mean the same thing. Purposive, is what we termed as judgmental or judgment sampling. So the goal or the purpose in your mind is what drives you to go and conduct that or pick that sample. So for example, I may want to only work with to do a study where I only want to interrogate pediatricians in a hospital because my study touches on children, and I know that they're the ones who might give me the right answer or the right feedback from my questionnaire or the instrument that I want to engage with, as opposed to having all the doctors in a hospital, and yet I know exactly what solution I need to address, or I need to be assisted with, or I need to engage with. So that can be purposive. So okay. So that is purposive sampling. Convenience. Okay, let's move. So the difference between purposive and convenience. Convenience is usually still a non-probabilistic sample, but here the sample is drawn from part of the population that is also close at hand. Like if I want to talk to, I want to find out about maybe the protest that happened yesterday. So I might pick a few youth or people who I'm sure might give me what I want, and then engage with them, and through that I'll get from that limited representativeness, or I might get the exact answers or solutions that I want to also engage with. So purposive samples are chosen well based on some criteria, and you're sure of some quality, but bias is usually pronounced in purposive sampling because you might want to only talk to people who will give you the exact answer. What if that does not come up with, does not lead to some fairness in the overall research, or you want to only talk about children who can walk, and you're leaving out maybe the special children, so that can also lead to some bias in the entire research, and that is not really ethical. It can be time consuming sometimes, and that is a demerit that we also need to acknowledge. The other non-probability sampling technique is quarter. In quarter sampling, we're dividing the samples of population into cells based on some characteristics, and a convenient sample is drawn from each cell until a quarter is met. I had a demonstration somewhere here, I think my video. So advantages is it is used when research budget is limited, and we introduce some elements of stratification. The stratification also in quarter sampling. The merits is it's very time consuming, and projecting data beyond sample may not be justified. Snowball. The research in snowball sampling, the research starts with the key person and introduces the next one to become a chain. The major example is usually like in countries where there's snow, and you have like an ice, is it snow or ice that rolls and keeps building until it becomes an entire rock. So you make contact with 1 or 2 cases in the population until you keep introducing until it becomes an entire chain, and it only stops when either or new cases are given or a sample is large enough to be managed. So it's very low cost and useful for locating rare populations, but it's biased because sampling units are not independent. The other categories I know of sampling are there, but I want to thank you so much for your patience. I want to thank you for listening, even as you want to wrap this up. Next time we'll manage our time well, but let me know if we also have any pressing key issues or concerns from the audience and questions that may need us or my mentors who are here with me to help us address. So thank you so much, and yeah, let me see if there's any question that needs my attention. Thank you, Stella, Lima, okay, and all of us. I can see Eliaki Mukundi is here. Thank you. I can see Kenneth Yodero, Christine, and everybody who has managed to join. Dr. Mushemi, thank you. Let me see. I can see a question from James. Why use sequential exploratory approach or sequential exploratory? Why? Okay, so like justification why you can opt to use the sequential exploratory. Remember, we talked about quantitative data collection, and we also have qualitative. So we might use it. You might choose to use it on quantitative to collect data that is quantitative based, and that can easily help you to analyze this data followed by some qualitative data in this case. So why? Quantitative data in this case can be expounded on the findings from quantitative aspect. So you can start from a qualitative, the general questions, the theoretical aspect that we talked about, and then from that, then we can always come up with some quantitative data that can be analyzed. Next, we have sequential exploratory. Sequential exploratory also helps helps the qualitative data collection. So it helps in quantitative data collection. It also helps in qualitative data collection and analysis, where you start with quantitative and then you move to qualitative. So either ways you can always switch between that. So why can you start? Why in what context can you analyze the qualitative, then followed by quantitative? That's for generalizations or invalidation of some qualitative findings. So I believe that should be able to answer you, James. Asante sana Kumpanga, Catherine Nalubega. Thank you so much. Thanks for exertive. I want to appreciate that. I believe we've tried to answer most of the questions, but if there's any that we've not answered. Maybe we can catch up online or in a different platform. I don't know if Aurelia will allow us to continue, but it's 8 p.m. and I want to thank you for your patience and for the interactive session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Grace, for that session. Truly, it was very packed, but you have been able to lay a foundation, really, because these are topics that for us, we always say you have now to go and do your own self-learning. So Grace has sensitized us on what is a research design. She has also sensitized us on what is sampling. So now our work is now to go and do a bit more of learning, of self-learning, and put into practice. Don't shy away from using YouTube videos, like from Grad Coach. I'll put a link. They can help you a lot. So thank you so much, Grace, for really doing justice to a topic, two topics that are very broad. It seems we might want to have a part 2 for the practical examples. I think those can also be very good. And I don't know how much of your availability, but if you are available, we could organize a follow-up session, just an hour, where we could now go to practical activities, see an example of a research design that has been written. We can also see examples of people who have used different sampling techniques in the different research that they have used, so that then with that practical example, then people can be able to also imagine it in their minds. But I think this was very useful for setting a foundation. So we will talk to Grace nicely so that we can have her come again and we have that practical follow-up session. But feel free to share your questions. And we are usually in a group called the Africana Journal Club. Here is my WhatsApp number. Here's my number. My name is Aurelia Monene. I coordinate the group. And you can always, let me just share the link to the group that we also share the material. So here we have two groups, two main groups, and then we have other people who've joined us, and you're most welcome. So we have the Africana Journal Club, and then we have the Rising Scholars Journal Club from INASP. INASP is an organization that has been mentoring early career researchers as well. So those are the two dominant groups, and that's where we will share the slides and the recording. But if you're not in those groups, let me share a link with you so that you can register. And then now it will be easy for you to receive the recording. We usually have a webinar every month so that based on the needs of the members, we also do another activity which is quite important. It's called research presentation. So every month we invite members of the group to present their research for other members to listen in and give their feedback. So like last month we had two members present, and that is how we now practice what we are learning. Now we learn sampling. So when you see someone presenting, you're able to say, oh, that is purposive, that is probability. So we have those activities. We also have an activity called Shut Up and Write. This is where we invite members on Saturdays, especially 2 hours where you quietly write, because we recognize that most people, why they don't move in their research is because they don't dedicate time, because life is busy. So what we say is that if you want to move in your research, you really need to dedicate time. And time is 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day. But if your research passes a week unattended, it will become too big for you. You will disconnect, you'll have disconnected ideas. So on Saturdays, we try and tell people, pause for those 2 hours and just work on your paper. And then the other activities we have in the group, we encourage members to ask questions, and other members come in and support with their responses. So the main purpose of our group at AIDA Africa, which is the Africana Journal Club, is just to create a community as we are going through our research, because sometimes it's so lonely, you are stuck. Some of you have received comments from your supervisor, you don't know what to do with them. So we we want to journey with you so that at least we can figure out, even as we are students, it's not like we are, like we also have lecturers in the group, but our philosophy is knowledge does not rest with one person, knowledge rests with all of us. So all of us can support each other and in our study. So even for me, I'm doing a master's degree, a second master. So we don't see ourselves as students, so we don't know. We say, yes, we are students, but we know something and we can share what we know as well as we receive from those who know. So thank you very much. Let me put the link there. I was talking and thank you so much, Grace. So we will let you know if there'll be a follow-up session for the practical session, which I think will be very useful. And even members who are in the group who've done different types of research, you can also come and share. I used this design and I was trying to answer this question and this is what I did. And through that practical approach, we can also learn a bit more. So thank you very much. Grace, do you have any last final words as I look for the link?
Thank you, Aurelia. Maybe just looking forward to sharing more on a practical session on the researches that I've done and even some that I've engaged with in the next session. But thank you for the interactive audience that we've had, and to wish you a blessed time wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to say something, who wants to add anything? As we get the link, feel free. Anyone from the audience who would like to say anything, please just share.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was fantastic, very loud and clear. Maybe just to inquire, not to inquire, a request. Please, we need the recording because it was very, very clear. And also, some of us would like to join the group.
Yeah.
What is required? What is the procedure? Is it a WhatsApp group? We would be happy.
Yes, it is a WhatsApp group because WhatsApp is the easiest way people can communicate in Africa. And it is, but it is a curated learning space. So we have a program manager who's running the activities, and then we, of course, it's busy, but so it's a WhatsApp group. It's free to join. All these activities we do are at no cost to people who join because we want to promote the spirit of Ubuntu, because we want to say that we as Africans can support each other and really nurture each other. So it's at no cost to members. And we've been around for over 5 years. So it's a group where we've seen people graduate, still stay, do their master's, some are doing their postdoc. Of course, we can do better, but with what we have, we try and share. And we also share a lot of opportunities. So what we cannot give, we also share a lot of opportunities for other mentorship programs that people can join and be mentored. So that's what we try to do.
So should we share our WhatsApp lines so that you add us?
No, I'm sharing with you the link. Let me share with you the link to Karista. Can I share with you the link so that you put it on chat? Karista, you there?
Pardon?
Okay, 1 minute.
Yes, I'm here.
I've sent you on your WhatsApp. Please put the link, the registration. We have a registration link.
Okay.
Put it on Zoom. I don't know why my WhatsApp is not working. So you get the registration link, you register yourself. We have right now over 700 members. We are members from different African universities. So it's a very mixed group, male, female, private, public university. Yeah, we just try to do with what we can. Yeah, so there is the link. You can copy it and then you fill in the form later. So it is called the Africana Journal Club. And then I also coordinate the Rising Scholars Channel Club as well. So we combine our activities. So I think you can see the link now. You can see the link? Yes.
Yes, we can see.
So you'll be added to the group, and we will share the slides, we will share the recording. Or the other last activity we do, we have one student, she's based in the UK, she's called Leah. She has volunteered every Saturday between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. East African time to mentor 2 students. So on Saturdays we have Leah, twice a month, 2 Saturdays in a month. So we book people for 30-minute sessions, and people have said they have been helped. So you meet her, you tell her what you're struggling with, and then you figure it out together. So I also do that, though not every time. So every month, 30 minutes, we talk, and then we try and see if the struggle you have can be supported. So yeah. So wishing you well. So we'll communicate the next follow-up, and go read more. And if you want to do better in research, read textbooks. Research textbooks can easily explain what you're doing. So when you get Grace's notes, you want to find out more, go and find out in a textbook. Use her notes to guide you to deeper reading. And then when you read, don't stay with the knowledge. Apply it immediately for your research project. So if you reach the place of the research design, maybe some of you didn't have a research design, ask yourself, which design is fitting of my question? What was mentioned? Listen to the recording. Then start immediately putting that knowledge in practice. Otherwise, what we have seen, some people go for so many webinars, but that knowledge is not translating to the growth of your paper. So please try, you learn something today, research design, concentrate on improving your research design right now on your paper, checking all those characteristics she has told us, those 10 things. Is it clear? Is my statement clear? So that the knowledge is immediately being applied to the practical, so that we are not just accumulating, we are using and reflecting and critically thinking as well. So let me stop speaking because I can speak the whole night, and say have a good evening, and I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. You share the slide. Oh, I have the slide.